What's going on, fellow heroes? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? Today is an exciting day because we are going to be talking about Dune.
Yeah, we are.
What's up, man?
Oh, how goes it, sir?
Did you have a good day?
I did have a good day. I went to work like I do every Sunday.
Yep.
Came home, watched. I started watching The Haunting of Bly Manor on the old Netflix, which is the follow-up to Haunting of Hill House. It's because, as we've talked about, it's an anthology show. It's each season is like its own little mini series. So started the second one of those. So still feeling in the Halloween spirit, keeping spooky time going, but now I'm ready to talk some deep, hardcore science fiction, my man.
Heck yeah. I like to hear that. All right. Let's get this show on the road. All right, here we go. Hello, fellow heroes, and welcome to the Digital RoundTable, where me, Mario, and my co-host, Jeff,
Hi.
are going to talk to you about movies, video games, much more, the industry. We love to have you here. You can always catch us live at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Join in the chat. Tell us what you think. If not, follow us, subscribe on YouTube. Give us a comment in the section below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed what you saw. And if you can't catch us on YouTube, or if you want to listen to us on the go, we're also on your local podcast streaming service of choice. I say local. I'm pretty sure they're world bound. Like Spotify.
You mean local is in like nearby.
Right, nearby.
You can get these very close to you.
You can reach for them.
They're there.
And Apple Podcasts. Wow. What today we're going to be before we get into spoiler territory, we're going to be into non-spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the film, feel free to sit back and listen. We're going to be talking about Dune. And let me tell you, my first impressions, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I was surprised at how much I actually liked it.
Cool.
How about you, Jeff? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it?
I thought you were gonna go on a thing and then throw it to me, but that was very quick.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I liked it. What about you? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you just think it was all right?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I have to give you the strict. Oh man, this movie is going to be difficult to talk about.
Okay.
Because I'm going to answer your question. Did I like it? And I will say no.
Ooh. Okay.
But if you were to ask me, do you think this movie is good? I would say yes.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's why I say it's kind of complicated, because this movie is not bad. I'm sort of prefacing my feelings on this movie in case anybody like really loves it or is like a hardcore fan of the book, and that's just like, okay, there's nothing wrong with this movie. It is not bad. It is perfectly fine. It is a good movie. The visuals are amazing. The score, which we can like get into the weeds about as we talk, is incredible. Mm-hmm. That being said, I have no personal connection to the characters. Nobody really connected with me. I don't really care about what's going on. It's been publicized. Obviously, this is only part one of the story. Part two has yet to be released, let alone made, let alone prepped, because Warner Brothers is waiting on the box office reports of this one to see if it's worth completing the story.
Yep.
And that being said, if part two never happened, no skin off my back.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's just my take on it.
So I had a hard time putting my 2 cents on this film, right? I purposely went into this film 100% blind. Like I purposely went into it not wanting to know anything. I didn't want to have a bias. I wanted to experience the film because a lot of times I go in and I watch like these superhero films and I already know how they're going to end before they begin. And I didn't want that. I wanted to see if this film kind of like stacked up to a general audience, which would be me, and also helped like the fans of the series. And I think it actually did. I think it did well because after I watched the film, I went and I began to look into it and began to see what other people were saying about it. And the film does, to me, is a great job. So like I'm gonna say yes, I liked it, and I'm also gonna say it's a good film. It's a film that it's one of those films that I think was really refreshing for me because I was thinking of this as I was watching the film. I love Marvel and I love Star Wars, and I talk about Star Wars every podcast, every time we do this show. However, I also, if some of, for the regulars that listen, I also really enjoy, like more, I don't want to say artsy, but things that, like things that are not meant to be blockbusters. And right. That, like, I saw, before, last week, The Last Duel played. I really enjoyed that film. That's a film that I like. And then, Green Knight came out, and then I'm a big fan of Parasite. Like I'm talking about films that were really good right now, and I'm talking those up. And there's other films, but I'm using those films because a lot of people have probably seen them or at least heard of them or understand the tone that comes with those films. And
right.
That's what Dune does. And I think that, like, for me personally, I'm a huge fan of these kinds of like slow burns. Like it's such a nice change of pace from this like action pack. Oh, I need this, and I like explosions here and fight scene here, and then I love. I was talking about this with Jeff. I don't know if we were talking about it live or not, but I was saying how I like reading, but sometimes I find it like really fun when I just read the source material of a book. Like I have a lot of fun just reading the rules of Dungeons and Dragons and reading the rules of Warhammer 40K. So like this film really helped me out, or not helped me out, but this film kind of does that, and I can see where I can see where someone wouldn't like this film, because when I was thinking about this film, I was thinking about how this isn't a film that I wouldn't necessarily like recommend to everyone, like this isn't, like I can easily recommend a Marvel film to someone because they're meant for a more broad audience. But I can't really recommend even Parasite. Like you can't, even though that won like an award, I can't recommend Parasite to everyone because not everyone's. I think it's a film worth watching. I could say that, so I guess in a way I could recommend it. But this film was weird because it's a science fiction film, but it's not really telling a message. There's no message of like good and evil in this film. It's just telling a story. Right, that's what this film's doing. It's just telling a story.
Here are the people. Here are the things they do.
Right.
This is what happens.
This is what happens, and it's almost like an epic poem of sorts. And it's really, that's what this film's doing. And it doesn't relay like a message of like, this is why this person messed up, or this is why this person messed up. It's just like, hey, here is the story of House Atreides or whatnot, and that's like when I look at the film, that's I think why I had a weird thought of the film. It was because there's no overarching message like in Parasite, right? Like Parasite's this story that's also talking about like the difference between class systems. And I'm pretty sure as the films go on, there's probably a deeper meaning and a deeper message behind all of it. But from my viewing of this film, there wasn't. and at the same time, me and you have talked about this before, Jeff. It's like that's not necessarily always needed, right? Like that's just like
Right.
if that was weird. That was weird for me in this movie because usually when you watch a movie like this, it's a slow movie and someone's trying to get their thought across. But it's the first time I've been able to watch a slow burn of a film, and I don't have to think politically about it. I can literally just turn my brain off and enjoy this film. And it has a very like niche audience because of that. Which is why I think like I can understand why people don't enjoy it. And so I think what you said, Jeff, was like, I didn't like it, but I think it's a good film, is very important and very like important for things to understand. I think it's a good film, and I totally understand if people don't like it, and I'm not going to get mad at anyone for liking it, but I fell in love with it for exactly what I'm trying to explain right now is it literally it combined two things that I love that I never thought was possible.
Right.
It's a movie that handles its lore very economically. And it's like it's constantly giving you information without you feeling overloaded with information. It's just this nice slow burn movie that I can just sit back, relax, enjoy, and like the characters. I was invested in the characters, but not in the same sense that I'm invested in like superhero characters, right? That I want to see them win, that I want to see them triumph. I'm more invested as to be like, I want to see what happens. And I think what this movie does really well is that it sets a precedent that there's something bad's going to happen. Like there's like this looming like tension, and you're waiting for the tension to break, and then when it breaks, you're like, "Oh wow, okay." And then it goes back to its subtleness, right? It doesn't end on a huge, gigantic like note. It continues with the same theme and pace. And I want to say, even the book, from what I've heard from people, is less action packed than the film. That says something.
That's the thing that I found really interesting, and I'm glad that as you were talking, you used the term blockbuster, because I think that's a very important thing for people to know. Kind of going into this is, it's one thing for something to be epic and grand in scope and grand in scale and like big and bombastic. That doesn't that's not necessarily a one-to-one translation to summer blockbuster.
Exactly.
Or, like Armageddon is a blockbuster. Independence Day is a blockbuster. But I would not say that, like, I would not put Independence Day and Dune in the same camp.
Right.
It's a different kind of movie. Like, this is a big, expensive movie. And it's weird because, like the movies and God, it's funny. I swore and I tweeted to you about this, but like as soon as the movie was over, I was like, okay, I don't have anything to say about the movie because like I'm not like super excited about it like I was for Shang-Chi to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about every scene. Like this scene is my favorite. This character is my favorite. Oh my God, I'm so excited to talk about this movie. But it wasn't like, a shitty movie where I'm like, okay, here's what they did wrong. Fuck this guy.
Right.
But now that I'm kind of talking out loud, I'm like, I guess there is a lot to say about it. But it's shit. I got lost with what. It's a very big, expensive movie.
Yeah.
And it's 2.5 hours. Like I think officially it's 2:36 is the runtime.
Yes, you are right.
And I know what I'm about to say is preposterous because it's literally just half of a movie.
I think I know what you're going to say.
But it's 2.5 hours and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like, I got to the end and I was like, wait, what? Okay, so let's recap here. And again, this is not spoilery because I'm going to say it in a way that's like, ooh, this is the plot of the movie. But I was thinking back on it, like as soon as it was over, I was like, okay, so there's a family, some people are like, hey, come check out our planet. And so they go to the planet, and then there's like an attack, and then they're running through the desert, and he fights a guy. The end.
Yeah.
You know, it was, yeah, those are kind of the bullet points.
Yeah.
And it was just so interesting that, like, but stuff was happening. Like,
right.
Clearly stuff was happening. It's 2.5 hours long. I'm confused.
It leaves you feeling that way. I know exactly what you're saying.
But part of it is because, and I'll say this in a way that is also non-spoiler, because we're not quite in our spoiler section, but there's a lot that happens, or rather, there is a lot that you see happening that doesn't actually happen. And it's sort of foreshadowing what is going to happen in part 2.
Right.
And so that's what I think is kind of interesting, is like especially like with a lot of the stuff that you see in the trailer, you're like, oh my god, there's this, and look at the fighting, and and you're like, oh, I see what you did, movie. That's okay. Yep.
It's one of those weird things where Chekhov's gun, like, it's just that variable, right? Because you want to see it happen, but it happens in a weird. And I'll discuss this more in the spoiler section, because I feel like I can't discuss it without talking about specific moments of the film. But exactly what you said, Jeff. Like, after I watched the film, and even your tweet that, you know, I liked it, and I said, you know, he's got a point. Like, I don't really have anything to talk about for this film.
Yeah, dude, I could talk for 20 minutes max, and you and I talking together, like, that's an hour.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's because the film, and I was thinking about it at work, because Sundays are easy. Lucky for me, Sundays are easy, and Sundays are vacuuming days at my job, and so, like, I always volunteer to vacuum, so I could just vacuum, and I can just, like, the monotony of vacuuming, it just allows me to just think about the podcast beforehand. And I was thinking, I was really just thinking about the podcast, and I was thinking, like, okay, the what's really hard to talk about this film is because it's for a niche group of people. It's for people who enjoy Dune. And me going into there completely blind, I feel confident enough that I can talk about that literal, you know, like, portion of Dune, because the movie does so well doing it. I can't talk bad about the movie because it's kind of well written. I think there's like there's one problem that I didn't even notice as a viewer, that someone else noticed, that I'd like to bring out in the spoiler discussion. There's one character where they're the only one where we're not giving any motivation for, but they're so crucial to the plot. But even then, like, I could argue that it still works. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I would piggyback off of that, because I'm pretty sure we're talking about different people. But yeah. I noticed a character kind of disappears from the movie. But I was talking to one of my coworkers, and I was like, okay, did that person like did I miss a scene? Was I looking away, or like did they just like go away? And they're like, oh no, like they have a big, like, because this coworker is a super fan of the entire series.
Okay, that's good.
And they were like, yes, yeah. He this character has a big part to play in the end.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Don't tell me.
I mean, I know what character you're talking about as well.
You can't tell me, but whatever.
Yeah, because on my second watch through of the film, because I watched it on HBO Max the second time, I was like, wait,
what happened to
so-and-so? What happened to so and so? Like, they just kind of is that a thing?
it's the Return of the King theatrical cut where Saruman just kind of isn't there anymore. Like, oh yeah, like the Ents attack Isengard, and there's like the flood from the dam, and then he's just not in the movie anymore, and you're like, wait, what happened? And
what happened to him?
Cut, and you're like, wait, he fell off of the fucking tower and got impaled? That's a scene I would have included. He's kind of, the second main antagonist, I would like to know what happened to that guy.
But yeah, for
But
sure.
none of us noticed until we watched the extended cut. We're
Right.
like, I don't remember this scene. Wait, did he just disappear and I was tripping?
I just accepted that he was defeated.
I
That's
just
why
forgot
lizard
about
brain
him.
told. Yeah, you literally forget
Two
about
Towers
him.
was a year ago. How am I supposed to remember that?
My brain went to a dark place when you said that. I'm so sorry. Like I'm not even gonna reference it.
I know where it went. And
Did
it's
you?
Fine.
Okay.
Mario, what other Two Towers are there? And
Yep.
there was also controversy. They were questioning releasing the movie because of it.
Okay.
It's 2002.
I'm okay. Because I thought I heard you say something else, and I thought I'm just gonna say what I thought I heard you say, and then we'll move on from that. I thought I heard you say twin, and I was like, wait, did he just?
Well, no, but that's true.
Yeah.
Like the Two Towers being released in 2002, New Line Cinema was like, we can't do this. And
Yeah.
Peter Jackson was like, it's the title of the book. Like, I'm sorry that time is the thing.
Right.
I'm sorry
Timing
that
was so
shit
bad.
happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they should have named the movie. Shit happens.
My bad. And it's just a gif of Peter Jackson like squinting, like giving that like shit-eating grin face, just like, my bad.
He's eating the tomato.
Get a sense of humor, people. This episode got dark.
Yeah,
Anyway.
real quick. We're if me and Jeff were not on camera right now, there would be less of a filter. So I'm kind of ready to go into the spoiler cast. I've said I want to say before we go into the spoiler cast, two things. Obviously, our score, our review, or whatnot, and then secondly, this movie, being the niche that it was, I think is doing rather successful, dude. It's I have the numbers up right now. It's
Nice.
40.1 million box office tickets sale just in America and it also set a pandemic record for Warner Brothers for the biggest 3-day opening since the company started its day and date strategy on HBO Max.
Oh, so it's the biggest theatrical of all of them thus far, then.
Yes. And on top of that,
being Godzilla and Kong and Mortal Kombat, the Suicide Squad,
yep,
etc., etc.
yep.
Okay.
And Wonder Woman, I believe is bigger than all of those. Yeah. And it's also earned so domestically that was the 40.1 million, and then also it has now made 220.7 million worldwide.
Okay.
So I think it surpassed its budget of. I don't have its budget up right now.
I feel like it should have been under 200. But
yeah, its
you
budget.
keep going and
I'm pretty sure the budget was like 130. Don't quote me on that. But it was under 200 million for sure. I saw something on Twitter. Don't know how true it is. But it had Black Widow had a budget that was $30 million higher than Dune.
Oh God.
Like, I love what people are saying right now about Dune. It looks like, please correct me. It looks like Denis.
Denis.
Yes. It looked like he went to another universe and filmed this movie. Like this.
Yeah. So the budget here, according to IMDb, 165. Which
165.
is a very respectable budget for what we saw.
Like I would not have guessed 165 million with what we saw. That the film looked phenomenal. Even when it was shot at night, everything was lit like well. You know what I'm saying? Oh, like the film was well shot. Okay, so but yeah, that was I wanted to talk about that. It is very successful. So hopefully that means we'll get part 2. I hope for part 2. I know for you, you're like, I enjoyed it. Or you didn't enjoy it. You enjoyed the cinematography, you enjoyed the film, but it's not something that you're craving.
the way that I would describe it, because there's also been this whole discourse happening around the film of like, oh, if you don't see it in theaters, you didn't see it, which we can kind of get into once we're done kind of talking about the movie. But I felt like I saw the trailer in theaters, so I got the experience. And again, like, I'm not trying to be shitty of like, ooh, fuck Dune. What? Like, no, that's not my stance. My stance is, it is beautiful. It is visually stunning. The sound is amazing. The score is incredible. But watching this, and for clarification, I did end up watching it on HBO Max, but I know myself, and I know that if I had seen it in the theater, it would be the equivalent of like watching like an art gallery installation of like, I'm looking at amazing visuals, I'm hearing amazing sound, but in terms of like a story or like any sort of emotional resonance, it's just not working for me.
I recommend going watch it in theaters for those of you still on the fence. I think you'll get a good experience overall. I don't agree with those people where it's like you're not actually watching the film if you're not. I know I was watching the film on my second time watching the film, which I don't really want to count because I kind of just stopped after like at the start of the third act, and then I was tired and I was going to bed. I just really wanted to watch again. I'll also say this much. I know I'm interrupting myself. Watched the film twice with my wife. She fell asleep both times. So like like she liked the film, but she's not like, I totally understand. Like it's not, she enjoys those types of films. Like she goes and watches those types of films with me, but I'm not offended that she fell asleep. You know what I mean?
I nodded off, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Dude,
during the first act. It wasn't until like after the first, like I guess that's the other thing is like, it wasn't until the 1 hour mark where I was like, okay, I am now watching a movie.
Right. And
again, I wasn't like into it, like, all right, let's go. It was 1 hour in, I was finally watching a movie, and that's fine.
That's fine.
Like
I nodded off during Green Knight, like those, and I like these types of movies. I did. Now, the first time we were watching the movie was the opening night, so it was already past Caitlin's bedtime. It was past her bedtime both times we were gonna watch it, but still, this is the fact, like. I know if we were watching a different movie, she probably would have stayed awake for it. However, like, there's nothing, like I said in the beginning, this is a movie that's for like a niche group of people. This movie isn't designed to be a blockbuster. It's a block office,
It needs
a box
to make
office.
A shit ton of money, but it's not a blockbuster.
It's not a blockbuster. Yeah, it's just not, and that's
not the metaphorical blockbuster.
Right. I'm not gonna get offended by anyone who does, because it's like, oh, I totally see it. Whereas for me, a movie like this, I don't know, I know personally, like, I'm just into that stuff. Like that's my weird thing, because I know, like, for you, Jeff, you get off on B-roll movies, and I get off on these like slow burn boring movies.
Yeah, so. And I mean, like, I get off on but like slow burn to me is like horror. Like a horror movie, and like an hour into the movie, you're like, okay, like we've been following the characters, but nothing scary has happened. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, no, dude. That's the point of slow burn horror, is everything happens in the last 10 minutes, but it's worth it. And then the last 10 minutes happens and you're scarred for life and you've just seen the devil. So there you go.
Do you want to go ahead and give your score? So first off, would you recommend this film? And if you want to score it, whether it be by numbers, fruit, or arbitrary ways, what would you do?
I would say if you are interested in seeing this movie, if you are excited about seeing this movie, go see it in a theater. If you are on the fence, like if you're kind of like, I don't know if I'll like it, and you have HBO Max, then watch it on HBO Max. It's perfectly viable. If you are on the fence and don't have HBO Max, then I probably would say don't, because It honestly, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want to look at a bunch of cool, beautiful, gorgeous stuff with an amazing sound concoction filling your ear holes, like, go for it. But if you're the type of person that like is really into hardcore sci-fi is not really your bag, then I would say probably skip this one. And I'm gonna take I'm gonna plead the fifth on numbers on like giving it a score because it's kind of unscorable. First and foremost being the fact that it is only half of a movie, so I don't even know if they did a good job telling the story, you know, or completing the character arcs. And also because I'm just kind of ambivalent. Like I guess I'll just give it a 5 because I'm just sort of ambivalent about it. I'm like, yeah, it's there. It didn't hurt me. So
Is that a personal score,
5.
or is that like your critique?
I guess that would be like a personal score.
Okay.
And I don't give it a 5 being like, oh, this movie sucked, so therefore I'm not going to give it an 8. It's
Yeah.
more of just like, it was good. I won't watch it again.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? This movie is such an anomaly to me. I'm very fascinated by the fact that it's just sort of there, you know?
All right. Yeah. No. I would recommend this film. I'd recommend this film to anyone, especially if you're just looking for something different. If you're tired of studios putting out blockbusters, and you're tired of like Marvel films, and you're tired of just you feel like you're seeing the same thing over and over again, I feel like this is a good change of pace. It's not like anything political, ironically enough, considering it's a movie all about space politics. It's a movie that you can inform yourself, but you don't. It takes you out of your everyday world, right? So I would recommend it. It's a good film, and that's why I will always recommend like good films to people. So watch it however way you can, but I do definitely say that preferred way is watching it in theaters, the biggest theater you can find. By that, if I were to give this film a score, you guys know how I score things. This one's weird. This one's really weird for me because exactly what I was saying before. The thing that I really like about it, that it doesn't give an overall message and it's not saying a political view, is also the thing that's hurting my critical score for it. Because the way that I score movies on this show is like 7, you pass, 8, you did something different, or you use the same techniques, but you use them efficiently. 9, you were able to get your message across while also using techniques. And then 10 being like you did something completely new. You got your message across and did everything. So like this movie is weird because again, there's no like, it's not like watching Star Wars, or it's not like watching Parasite where it's like be good, or this is why the economic class system is bad. It's just telling a story, but it does such a good job telling that story. And coming from a film where people thought that this adaptation was untellable on the big screen, and being able to actually put it on the big screen and succeed doing so is a feat in its own, as well as not only doing that, but as well as this film inspired so much for us as a society. Like, it inspired my favorite thing of all time, which is Star Wars, and now I'm gonna be into like something really new and fun, and I do want to. It's got me excited to read the books, and it's got me to do all that stuff. So like critically, yeah, I'm nerding out over this film, which I knew nothing about, and I recommend people to go watch it. But to critically review it and put an arbitrary number on it, I would say I would give it an 8. You know, I would give it an 8. I think, if anything, like an 8.5 or an 8.75, like an 8 with a stamp of solid approval. Like, this film not only shut some people up, but it just does a good job at what it wants to do. Like, the film obviously is meant for people who are fans of Dune. It doesn't try to it doesn't try to make any funny quirks or funny like jokes just for the general audience. It doesn't try to have this crazy action scene every 10 minutes to keep people intrigued and not to go use the restroom during certain scenes. It doesn't try to play towards a general audience, and I respect that so much. And I love when films expect their audience to understand what their film is, and they can succeed at that, because there's a lot of times where that can fail. And so I think this film is well worth watching, and deserves all the credit and praise that it's getting. Now, I will say, I will say that it's time to go to the spoiler section. So that's tell me what you thought below. If you haven't seen it yet, or give us your opinions for non-spoiler, check out the spoiler section, and I want to hear what you guys think about the spoilers as well. So thank you for listening, and until next time, play nice. Okay. Spoilers. So I want to. This is gonna be everywhere. Jeff, I want to let you know I love you, and I absolutely am not judging you, or am I like mad at you for your opinion of this movie.
Okay.
I do want to say that you brought up a point. You brought up like an interesting point that didn't even dawn on me. I don't know why this didn't dawn on me. So I don't know. Like I really tried to go and watch this film with like no bias. So you brought up that you couldn't like attach to any characters. And I was like, that's kind of true. Like, it's really, there's not really any characters that make you kind of like attach to them. But from what I've heard from like the books, that's kind of how it's like none of the characters are likable, and like the main character is
supposed
very
to be like emotionless.
Yeah, it's very cold. But like the actor was Timothy.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet, thank you. He actually puts a little life in this character, which I think I can like appreciate from the film, or from his performance. But I do think like this film puts a little more life and color into the series than what I've heard, because there's a coworker someone that I work with. That's the definition of a coworker. I don't know why I need it to be that redundant, but one of my coworkers she read the books, and she was telling me, because at first we were like, we're not going to read the books, we're going to go watch this blind. But then her boyfriend said, well, he wants her to read the books, so she read the books with him. And I kept on asking. I was like, so like, what's the feel? I was like, don't tell me anything, because I want to go in there blind, but what's the feeling? How's it? I was like, I heard it's this, I heard that. And she's telling me, yeah, it's like, it's really boring, and it's really political, and it's like, there's nothing that really happens. And, like you get to the part, because we both knew that this film was going to be only like half of the first book. And, and I was she's like, I got to the halfway point. I was like, okay, what happened? Like, what? She's like, it's kind of anticlimactic. And I was like, okay. So like, I got an idea that this book, and I'd ask her about the characters, and then I watch Cosmonaut Marcus, and Cosmonaut Marcus has been he's been
he really frames stuff in a way, because like, here's what I love about, I'm gonna do a quick thing. Here's what I love about critics and how a lot of people perceive critics. A critic, you don't look at a critic who says, I give this movie a 10 out of 10, and you know that movie is good, that you as well will give that movie a 10 out of 10. That's not what a critic does.
Yeah.
A critic presents to you what their tastes are, thus allowing you to form an opinion. Okay, based on their taste, these are my tastes, so this is how I will feel about a movie.
Yes.
So, for example, and I'm not going to get super into the weeds about this, but there's a podcast that I listen to, which used to be a YouTube channel, that has 3 critics on it who I love, I adore, and I know if one of them hates a movie, I'm gonna fucking love it. I know if all of them collectively are on the fence about it, I don't need to see that movie. Because if
Interesting.
these people, based on how they have rated other movies, I know if they're on the fence about something, I probably won't like it and I won't give it the time of day. So that's the thing about critics. And what I love about Cosmonaut Marcus is that he presents exactly that, which is if he really like, and because I watched his quickie about Dune, and I was like, you know what? Based on what he said, that makes sense. Because there's stuff that happens in the movie that he was like over the moon about, and I was just like, I didn't get that at all. And also, like, it's interesting, like, watching like some other YouTubers and some other people on Twitter who are huge Denis Villeneuve fans, who are like, I think he's one of our greatest directors living today. I love every single one of his films. And I'm like, I think that has something to say about it, because and here's something kind of controversial.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Which is, this is the first of his films that I have seen.
Oh, same.
I was like, wait a minute, because I went back through and I know of all of his movies, and I have had conversations around his other movies, but I was like, holy fuck, I didn't actually see Prisoners. I didn't actually see Sicario. I didn't actually see Arrival. And I was like, oh my god, like I didn't see Blade Runner 2049.
Oh wait, never mind. I've seen Blade Runner 2049. That's another.
Okay, yeah,
I didn't know that was he did that.
Yeah, he did.
Oh my gosh, I love that film.
And so it's that type of thing where I'm like, okay, like I think I'm starting to get it. It's not that like, oh man, I was super hyped on this movie and it totally let me down. It's like, no, this just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and that's totally fine.
That's okay. And I love that you said that, because I'm glad you brought up critics and like how people view films, because even I kind of do that. Like I have my numbering system, and this is how, and I know it's different from yours, and I know like, and that's why I love that me and you, I know when I see a film, like when I watch this film, I was like, Jeff isn't gonna like this film. I was like, Jeff isn't. I just knew, because I've already gotten I've kind of gotten a taste for what you like, you know, and so I kind of going into this, I was feeling a little bad, because I was like, oh man, I feel like he watched this because he maybe felt like he had to watch it, and
I'm so glad that you said it and I didn't have to.
Like, I was like, I don't ever want you to feel like you have to go watch a film for the podcast or for anything, you know, like.
Well, but that's why I ultimately watched on HBO Max, because like I was like, man, like everybody keeps saying like if like, oh man, like it's so great, you got to see it in a theater, but I was like, bro, I'm just not that interested. Like, and I honestly don't want to throw down $16 to go see a movie that I might not like. And then I was like, I wasn't pacing back and forth in my living room or nothing, but like fucking 6 o'clock rolled around, and I was like, well, I'm not going to theater, because I don't want to drive. I mean, I live in Oak Cliff. It's like 20 minutes, but still, I was like, I don't want to drive into town to go see a movie at 6 o'clock at night. Like, if I'm going to go see a movie, I want to go see it in the afternoon. That's just my style.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it. And then, like, I just pulled it up on HBO Max, because I was like, I also didn't want to text you and just be like, bro, like, I gotta be real with you. I just don't have an interest in this movie. So can we like come up with a topic for the podcast that's not Dune? Like, I was like, that's shitty. Like, dude, just fucking watch the movie. and that's when I was like, dude, fucking like you have HBO Max, or have access to it at the very least. So just watch the movie. And so like that's where I found myself kind of in that first hour, just going like, oh god, like I'm just like, this is homework. I'm doing this for this time. Kind of sort of got into it a little bit. You know, but again, it's that thing. The best way that I can describe it, when it's the scene, because again, I don't know anybody's fucking name, but when I know Paul,
yeah, Paul.
I at the very least know Paul, but
I don't know his dad's name.
He's talking to a lady in the black veil.
Yeah,
and he puts his hand in the box, and it's like, in this box is pain. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where like he's about to like pull his hand out, like you can see it in his face, but then he like refrains and he like finds the strength. And the score kicks in with those fucking drums, and it's the vocalist doing the ha Shafi, like whatever that is. And you hear it in the trailer. You've seen the trailer. It's the vocal line that happens when the title card comes up, where it's like Nahina, and it's amazing. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing. I don't give a shit about what's happening in the story, though. You know, it was the anti Shang-Chi, where like shit was happening, where it was like, yeah, let's go, fucking get him, fuck you, Dad, you're wrong, let's go. It was like, all right, I'm pumped because the cinematography is impeccable, the score is great. Paul's hand hurts. I don't care. Like, and again, like I don't say this to like sound shitty or anything, but like all these people could die, and I'd be like, okay, that's how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I think like in a weird, well, it's funny that you bring that up because in a weird way, like when you said that, there wasn't really a point in the film where I was, and it's probably because I didn't read the books. It's probably because I'm learning about everyone as it does, and I think like if I watch the movie more and more, and if I read the book, then I'll grow more and more attached to each one of these characters, right? And I liked not knowing what was going to happen. I loved that. I loved going into this film and not knowing anything. With that being said, there was I don't know, like that moment where he's like in the very beginning of the film and he's talking to his dad, and I think this was in the trailer too, and he's saying, well, what if his dad's saying, you have responsibilities, one day you're going to take over House Atreides, and Paul goes, well, what if I don't want it? Like, what if I don't want it? And his father turns around to him and says, then you'll be everything that you'll only ever be what I ever wanted you to be, or you've done everything you wanted me to do. You were my son. Yeah. And like, I love that. That line. That's such an amazing line.
It's in the trailer, so I had already seen it. Right. Which kind of bummed me out.
Yeah. But it's and that line is so powerful. And right after he said that, I leaned over to Kate and I was like, oh, he's dead. Like, this guy's gonna die. There's no one's allowed to be happy in movies. No one's allowed to be happy in films. And like, so even me knowing absolutely nothing about the series, I was like, okay, they don't have a feud. They're on good standings. Okay, well, daddy's gonna die. Daddy's gonna die.
Oh, their conflict is completely resolved. One of them's
there's no conflict.
And this Timothée Chalamet kid's kind of the main character, so that leaves only one option.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, well, Dad's gonna die. I've established that just from my plethora of watching movies, and so, but then I don't really know what else is gonna happen. So his mom's a real interesting character, and like we get to his mom. And they have like this interesting dynamic where she's really hard on him. Like, she's a lot harder on him than the dad. And there's never really a time where they're the ones with the feud. Like it's not like a feud. Like, they love each other and you can tell like this is just how he was raised. But anytime he's on screen with his dad, it's always like, there's always like smiling and laughing and stuff, but anytime he's on screen with his mom, there's like tension, and this is when they're progressing the plot, and this is so during that scene with the hand, I was like, okay, well, he's not gonna die. We're 10 minutes into the film, and, but I was curious. I was like, what does this mean? I was intrigued to see more. I was like, what happens if he succeeds? Like, I was invested in the lore. So I wasn't invested in the characters per se. I was invested in the world building, and I was invested in like what this meant for the overarching like story, and what domino is this going to topple over? And that's what like that's what I fell in love with this film, was like and I said it like during the non-spoiler cast, is like the economical value that he put into doling out the story or the lore was so good. Like I never felt overloaded. I felt like every time I learned about something, it led into another piece of the film that helped me understand the world better, which then led into more lore. And it was kind of like watching Game of Thrones, but instead of being interested.
Right.
Yeah, instead of being interested in the lore because there were boobs on the screen, I was interested in the lore because there was a threat that was coming, and I needed to understand, and I wanted to understand why this threat was coming, and what did this mean, and why is this happening? And so I kind of like with Star Wars, like I fell in love with the world that was surrounding the characters, and I wanted to learn more and seek out more knowledge of this world. So that scene, it hit us. I feel like it kind of hit us the same way, but in different avenues. Cause yeah, I'm not really like, I don't, if Paul died there, I don't think I would have really cared. I would have been like, okay, what are the consequences? What happens now?
Right.
That's where I was.
I guess, like hearing you talk about how economic everything was, and like and how lore heavy everything is.
Yeah.
I feel like for my money, that's where the movie kind of lost me from the get-go. Is like to be honest, because again, like we're talking about slow burn earlier. Long does not equal bad to me, and I feel like I almost would have preferred a 3-hour version of this movie if you took that extra 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever that you're adding on, and just shown me a little more personality from everybody. And what I mean by that is, like, the first time we see Paul, he wakes up, he sits down at a table, and his mother immediately starts talking about the voice.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? Or is it the voice?
The voice.
Like, use the voice. Ask me to pass the water. And I'm like, bro, I don't even know what these people's personalities are, and suddenly you're throwing me their superpowers? And again, I don't mean that as like something that I'm complaining about necessarily. Yeah. It's just like, who is this kid? Who is this woman? Like, I've barely, like, they just showed up on screen and suddenly we're talking about like telepathy. And like the way that I would kind of transpose that to superhero movies is like Peter Parker. The first time we meet him, he's not web slinging.
Yeah.
We realize, oh, he's got a crush on this girl. Oh, he's best friends with this guy. Oh, he's being bullied by Flash Thompson. And oh, like, he's a photographer. Like, there's so much I know about him before the plot kicks in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel like I didn't quite get that here. That, like, we're immediately thrown into it. And then the first time we see Oscar Isaac, he's like in this formal thing where this fucking spacecraft lands, and it's like,
they spent millions of
dollars. Like, House Atreides House Atreides will always answers their call, and I'm like, who are you? Like, what? Like, are you the president or are you the governor? I don't understand how. And then that's another thing that, like, I'm sure you loved, but but when they're talking about like the debts and stuff, where they're like, we are 10 billion. Sapphires.
Yeah.
Over, and I'm like, just say gold, please, God, just say gold and silver or something. Like, I don't know what a sapphire is. Like, and it's just one of those things that made me realize, oh, that's right. Like, in deep sci-fi and in deep fantasy, like, you invent your own currency, and it's this thing, and it's like, and that's where it just sort of lost me in a weird way. Was just like I just wanted to feel like these people were people, but everything, and again, like, I understand it. The book is probably super, super dense, and when you're doing a movie, you've got to streamline a lot of stuff. Like, my coworker I was telling you about earlier, who's like a super Dune fan, was like, they sped through so much stuff, like, in the first half of the movie, and I was like, I wish they had slowed down. I didn't know what was happening. Like, I could barely keep up, you know, and yeah. you know, it's and again, like that's the movie they made. It didn't click with me, so it's not really my speed. That's fine. I just one of the other things that like popped into my head when you were talking is oh, you talked about how like okay, it's not a blockbuster. It's not about like the action. It's like a really political thing, which immediately made me think of Battlestar Galactica,
Oh,
which in and of
love
itself
Battlestar Galactica.
is super political.
Yeah.
And like yeah, there's like space battles and fights and stuff, but like it's really about like the politics of everything. It's the West Wing in space, if you will. But for example, but for example, and obviously this is a TV show, not a movie where you're allowed to let things breathe a little bit more.
We're talking about the reboot, right? Not the
yeah, not the original '70s show,
Yeah,
the reboot that Ronald Moore did. And obviously you could say, well, Battlestar was a TV series, Jeff. Dune is a movie. And I would counter that with, no, Dune is half a movie. They decided to split it up into two, so they're letting it breathe. They're giving themselves some air. But for example, the first time you meet Starbuck, she's playing poker with a bunch of people. That's something I can connect with. Like, people playing a card game where they're gambling. And again, it's not poker. They got weird fucking cards, and they got their own weird fucking currency that whoever created Battlestar Galactica made up. It's not dollars. It's not gold. You know what I'm saying? But that's something I can connect to. That is something tangibly that I can relate to. I'm like, oh, okay, I get who these are the types of people who play cards for money. That says something to me, and that was a little bit of the problem that I had with Dune was even Jason Momoa's character, who I think is the most kind of relatable character because he's just a dude. I mean, let's be honest. Like, I don't want to cast any shade on Jason Momoa as an actor, but let's be honest. He's playing Jason Momoa.
Yeah, he's like the Will Smith of our generation now.
Exactly. But I'm like, okay, he's the only person in this movie who feels like a character, and everybody else, and this is part of the weirdness about the movie for me. Everyone else feels like they're just reading the book. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I get what you're saying.
But again, that's the book. It's Shakespearean. It's theatrical. It's very special. Like the way that people speak is very special to this story. And I was just like, and again, like I don't understand why I didn't connect with this movie more because I fucking love Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But like, I just couldn't tap into anything. I don't know.
So, like, I don't want to offend you. Do you mind if I kind of like give kind of like a rebuttal to what you're saying?
Absolutely, dude.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so it's gonna be a rebuttal, but it's also gonna be kind of like my take on the characters and on that story because you bring up so many good points. And you're speaking for a group of people that probably don't know how to be voiced, and I want you and all those other people. You don't need to hear this. You already know this. I want all those other people. I want all those people to hear that. Like if anyone tells you that you're wrong for feeling that way, that you're wrong and Dune's a great movie, and you're like, tell those people to shut up. Like, don't even try. Like, don't even bother talking to those people because everything Jeff said is not only true, it's his opinion and it's your opinion and it's like it's valid. So if anyone's like, well, you're wrong, Dune is a cinematic masterpiece, you're an idiot if you don't like, dude, shut up. The guy who's saying that is an idiot. With that being said, I'm not going to explain to you why you're wrong.
Because I'm not, as you just said.
So, I'm going to start off with something because I'm gonna start off with like the when we first see Paul in that scene, because I got different vibes from it when I was watching it, and it was interesting to hear your first thoughts, and I like what you brought up with like you want to see some character into it. Like the way I saw it is, so he gets up, he wakes up, and he goes to eat breakfast, and he's sitting at a table with his mom, and like she immediately starts asking about the voice. So like for me, like watching it, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh my gosh, he is, hold on, I'm so sorry, I gotta sneeze. the first thing that went through my mind is like, excuse me, by the way, was
bless you, by the way.
thank you. By the way, no, like, oh my gosh, this is how he lives. Like, this is the relationship that he has with his mother. It's kind of like this professional work mentor training relationship, like something as casual as he can't even do anything. Something as casual as just like sit at the table and eat with his mom because she wants to train him, and she, this is because we can't see more into his training. This is a good way for the film to not only give exposition, but to show the relationship between these two characters. And I immediately saw that. I was like, he does not have a normal relationship with his mom. It's very much, they're on good standings because he can easily tell his mom, like, oh, I'm not in the mood, I just woke up, which also tells me that he's like nobility. He lives a pampered life. That he's like, that's what I would expect my D&D noble character to kind of act like. And that's exactly what went through my head when he said that was, oh, okay, he's spoiled, but not spoiled because he's being told this. So he just lives a pampered life, and he's trained a lot. He's like Jon Snow in this aspect. But I also have to learn about the voice as an audience member. So I'm getting a feel of the character, and then I am learning about the world. I'm essentially learning about the Force, the voice, the Force, the thing that binds this universe together. And as the movie progresses, instead of learning about Paul, instead of just being given like this exposition dump, it doesn't even have to be an exposition dump. Like, you used a great example with Starbuck being, it can be something really short that gives me a lot about their personality, or even Sam Raimi, where I learn a lot about Peter Parker, and he's being done well. Those are two great moments. I can even go as far as to say, as watching a movie like The Magnificent Seven, the newer one with Denzel and Chris Pratt, like each one of those characters, their intro gives off their personality. Yeah, they have an introduction scene. So I can go as far as that to help your plot. But I think like what this movie does is it has so much information to give out about the world that instead of learning about Paul from the very beginning, you're kind of learning about him as the film progresses and as the film goes on. And it kind of like you get like treats, you get like snacks here and there. Almost this is kind of, I didn't mean to make this pun, but it's happening right now. It's almost as if like you're in a desert and you have water, and your water is your character. Like, I don't want to say character progression, but or development. It's like character personality, and you learn more and more about their personality and who they are as you're like going through the desert with taking little sips here and there. So as I learned about Paul, there's this thing where again, whenever they're getting attacked by the other faction, the other houses, I didn't really care. Like, there was nothing bounding me to the characters. I was much more like intrigued as to what this means politically for that world. Like, what is this? But by the end of the film, whenever Paul has to do his duel, I was invested. I was invested in Paul because of his powers and because of what he's doing, and I want to see him grow more. I want to see him get to where his visions are showing. But I'm also invested in the idea that like he now has to fill in. He now is like no longer that happy pampered kid. He's turned into this person that has to survive and has to
they even say Paul Atreides has to die in order for the blah 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 to arise.
Yeah, and so he
you're meant to think is literally
exactly,
but he finds out, oh no, I just have to do things that I never thought I would do.
Right, and like you see a different side of him after like the climax of the film, and then I get more invested into that Paul, right? Because when the film the first half of the film, I'm invested in House Atreides. I'm invested in that house, and to see that house fall, like I assumed that they were going to have an agreement with the Sand People, and they were going to make an alliance, and all those visions of war and all those trailers was House Atreides fighting against these guys, and I was wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was invested in this house only to watch it fall, which I was then disappointed in. So it wasn't like I was ever invested in the characters. I'm still, in a weird way, I was still invested in the world. So like that scene, going back to the scene with his mom and him, what I thought was like, I can't relate to this because I never really had a sit down dinner with my family. I did with my grandparents, and but the stereotypical way a sit down dinner works is like, tell me about your day. How are you doing? Like, what do you have planned for today? How do you, and this is a pattern that continues when he goes to train with Thanos. He's like, he's like, I'm not in the mood, and he throws in. He's like, well, that's rude. Like,
I love that. That's rude. That was
yeah.
Really funny.
That was so.
I kind of want to watch this movie again.
And so
it's not that there's a big like M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end, and I need to watch it again to find all the clues to the twist. I just need to watch it again because I straight up missed what was happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Like, but then it's the same relationship he has with his mom. Like it's this professional.
Yeah,
we're friends.
I'm not but 10 minutes away from my bed.
Yeah, like, and so I get that it's such a small scene, but it told me a lot about the characters. It told me like this mom, she's loving, and she cares about her son, and that's told through the actress. Like she does, all these actors do such a great job, like acting in this film. And it's like her voice, her tone is like, I love my son. And then even whenever she gets to put her hand in the box, or he has to put his hand in the box, she's like struggling between, because she knows what could happen. Yeah. And she's crying. And it's like, okay, this lady loves her son, but she is loyal. She's like the girl from Black Panther. The bodyguard.
Denai Guerra.
Yes.
I don't know the character name.
But yeah, like
Ikoya.
Yeah, she's like my loyalty is to the throne. That's what Elizabeth. That's her mom's name. Or his mom's name is Elizabeth. That's how Elizabeth is. And
Jessica.
Then Jessica. Wow, I said Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
I think it's Jessica. I don't know.
But that's how she is. That's how she is to her son. And like that's really all I need to know about that character. Like these characters, I hate to say it, are kind of one dimensional. Like they have one shtick to them. And that's all they need in this film, because this film has so much world building and lore. And like maybe I'm just used to that because in Star Wars characters have one dimension, but it's not just in Star Wars. I think here's the problem with high fantasy, whether it's high science fiction or just high fantasy in general, like with Lord of the Rings, Dune, Star Wars, Blade Runner. Maybe Blade Runner can be considered an exception. When you go into that high fantasy territory, characters become tropes. Characters become one-dimensional. Characters become mythological characters, like from epic poems. When things get to a point where I, as the audience member, cannot relate to what it's like traveling to another planet, much less traveling to a different state in my country, then like I've traveled out of the state, but you know what I'm saying. The characters then become harder and harder to they just become one tone. They become one note, and that's tough. But whenever you have characters that are more in like realistic settings, like you have realistic fantasy, low fantasy settings, then characters become more dynamic and layered and things like that. So I just for me, I think like the film, I agree with you, but I think like the film made up for it because as I was learning about the characters, as I was learning about their personalities, it was doing exposition to lore for me, and that that did a lot. There were characters that had what, how do I say it, like more personality, like what's his name? I don't even know his name. The dude that tried to put in his resignation.
Oh, the Treasury guy.
The Treasury, yeah, the General or the Treasury or whatever.
I only know this because I literally have IMDb open in front of me because I knew we were going to run into this shit. Thufir Hawat.
Yeah, there's no way I'm ever going to remember that name.
No, I didn't know he had a name. And they introduced him. He was like, my old friend. And I was like, cool. I'm not going to remember that shit.
Not going to remember that shit.
He is dude I've seen in other stuff who has black spot on his bottom lip for some reason.
Right.
That's how I know him.
That's right. But he had like an umbrella. He had like a Eastern umbrella. He had attitude when he talked. He was sad. He had just this character to him. But there was never a time where it's like I caught him playing dice. We never see these people doing what I think Jeff would call their oof moment, or their, I forget what you call it. But it's like their little. We never see them doing their hobby. There's never a time where we see them doing their hobby.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's what I'm talking about with like, just give me give me the 3-hour version of this movie, but don't add any more story. Just give me something to let me know, like dude, fucking when I know you're onto something, but I just want to like add another thing. Is like Batista's in this movie,
yeah,
and like I who is he? I thought, is he just some
He's
random
the nephew.
mercenary?
He's the nephew.
Apparently he's actually related to Stellan Skarsgård, but like they keep talking about the Emperor. Is Stellan Skarsgård the Emperor? Like the bad guy, the really fat guy that floats in the air, is he the Emperor? No. I don't know, because I thought that the Emperor was like some other dude, and then the guy from Thor, I'm going to say the guy from Thor because you don't know actor names, but the guy from Thor who's like really fat and floats and is like the bad guy, he's like a baron according to IMDb, so that's not an emperor. And so it just became this thing where I was like so confused, where like, and again, like the first time that you see Batista is he's like yelling, and I'm like, why are you angry? Like I don't know that like that was the thing where like I just felt so dumb as a movie watcher. I was like, Batista, I love you. Why are you yelling? I don't know who you are and how you fit into this story. Stop
Interesting.
Yelling at me.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Because like on my well, that's interesting. That's probably maybe on like, not that you need to go watch it multiple times, so maybe on like multiple viewings. Because on my first viewing, I was completely like, I understood. Like I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know who Batista was, because you don't know who Batista is till later on, and he calls the Baron his uncle. And you're like, oh, okay. But he's like, but when he's yelling, because during, I think there was some narration or something, someone says, I even think, it might have been, it might have been the father, but someone says, Zendaya says it, and then Paul's father says like they're not going to be happy that and they're talking about sabotage, and they're talking about like how they left them like really handicapped for the situation. So there's and then you cut over to them, and Batista's pissed off. He's like, "How can we let this happen?" And it's like,
well, I think that's where I kind of fucked up at first, because like literally the movie opens with Zendaya essentially going, "Here's the exposition."
Yeah,
and I wasn't ready for that. Like I was ready for like an action sequence, and then you kind of see the fallout of the action sequence, and then it's like that was the day everything changed. Here's some exposition, and then you again, like I'm like, this is an easy comparison to make, but like when you look at Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, like that opening exposition sequence in Lord of the Rings is like 15 minutes long, and you see every minute detail of it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
here it's like, all right, we got 2 minutes to tell you these are the Harkonnens. This is the planet of fuck. Where does Zendaya live?
They also call it Dune. I read the first page of the book, so they just
Dune.
like
Arrakis.
its name is
That's what it is,
Arrakis,
Arrakis.
but they also
Yeah,
call it
okay.
Dune.
But she's like, all right, the Harkonnens are taking over my planet Arrakis and spice and like it was one of those things where like as I was watching, it was just like 30 seconds goes by, and I like kind of adjusted myself. I was like, oh shit, I wasn't ready. What happened? oh fuck! Oh god! And it's that thing where like they literally tell you everything that you need to know in the first minute. If you're not paying attention in the first minute, you're gonna be lost for the next 2 hours and 35 minutes, motherfucker.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I mean
Shit.
like I said, it's still a slow burn movie. So even there could be parts where you could just zone out and miss something. And I don't know. I was intrigued. I think that's what the movie does well. Is like it, even for a slow burn movie, is like I was intrigued the whole way because I was in, and I think the movie wants you to be invested in not just the characters, if that makes sense. Like that's my assumption, and that's how I ended up watching it, but I wasn't trying to watch it that way, right? Because like I said, I didn't know what to expect. I assumed this was going to be a huge action blockbuster film. Like I went into there thinking it was going to be a huge action blockbuster film. I knew the book was slow, and I knew the movie was like, I didn't know if the movie was intended to be slow. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I was like, yes.
Queen.
But yeah, like that, I think like having the characters be the way that they were worked for me. And in no ways do I think that works for everyone. And I can totally understand, because it's really hard. I like you watch other stuff, especially with media, and I want to talk about this next time we do the podcast. Like, and I brought this up to you one time. Our Marvel films, our superhero films, not just Marvel films, our superhero films, like ruining cinema, and that's
right.
that's a very dramatic way of saying it. But
we're gonna pretend on that episode because we love MCU, but we're gonna it's gonna be a Digital Hero Roundtable podcast dark.
Yeah, it will be like
pretend that we hate it.
The digital villain roundtable.
Oh, what's up, dude? When you do it, you should be like, "What's up, fellow villains? Welcome to the Digital Roundtable."
And just do like a maniacal laugh.
Voice.
Yep, there's thunder like looming in the background.
Well, me, Mario, and my co-host Jeff. Hello. Instead of my usual hi, I go hello.
We're totally gonna do that next. It's done. It's happening. There's no way it's not happening.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna channel so much death metal.
Oh my god.
Here's the problem with Tony Stark, you motherfucker. You ruined everything.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. That's so great. I love that. And that just made my night.
My vocal cords cannot. We're not actually going to do that. My vocal cords cannot take 2 hours of.
Not the whole show.
But,
No.
We'll
do the intro.
Joke about.
But not the whole show. There's no way.
Yeah, and it'll be totally appropriate because we'll sound like we're gremlins and goblins on Halloween night, except it's middle of November.
Middle November. We're demented turkeys.
Yeah.
No, but
can I?
I feel like I'm talking in circles. I may have gotten redundant. I feel like I'm saying something, but I don't. But I think I feel. Did I get my point across? Does that make sense? Like those scenes, I like the snippet of character. I guess I got so distracted by the
you
lore.
The way that you talked about like that opening breakfast scene, for example, is like, oh shit, like Mario was literally picking up shit that I was not.
Okay.
And I think, and again, like I want to make sure that I say this over and over and over again, is like I went into this going, I don't want to watch this movie. I don't have an interest in this movie, you know, and so that to me is like, well, clearly I'm not gonna pick up on a lot of what they're throwing down because and again, it's not that I'm like anti-Dune, that I'm protesting the movie. No, it just, for whatever reason, and you know what, I blame COVID. I'm gonna be honest, I blame COVID. Like I was super hyped on this movie when the first trailer came out, and like hearing about who was in it and who was involved, I was like, holy shit, this looks awesome. And then a fucking year and a half went by, and I just kind of lost interest. You know, like, and I know we kind of talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about, okay, next week is Dune, and the comparison that I made was like, well, I'm D&D 5e, or no, the MC, like, imagine if the MCU is D&D 5e,
Yeah.
and Dune is Pathfinder.
Basically.
I don't want to learn a whole new rule set. I don't want to learn a whole new set of mechanics, blah, 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 that comparison. Like, I feel like that's the reason why, like, you could objectively look at, like, Shang-Chi, for example, which is an episode that we did where I was super hyped on the movie. And it's like, well, Jeff, like, technically, that in and of itself is Pathfinder. Like, yeah, it takes place in the MCU, but it's a whole new set of characters. It's a whole new set of lore. It just happens to fit into something. And I'm like, well, yeah, but...
No, you could argue that it's Pathfinder.
Into the MCU, which I have an interest... Like, I'm already pot committed to that shit, and this is, like, just a different campaign. Well, on top of
here's the thing,
D&D, whereas Dune is its whole separate thing.
I don't think you can compare Dune to any of the MCU films. Like, honestly, they are.
I mean, we already talked about Denis Villeneuve's opinions on the MCU, so we know where he stands.
Yeah,
so
we know.
It's clearly a completely different thing.
We definitely know where he stands. Like, here's the thing. Like, MCU is and we talked about this a little bit during the non-spoiler cast. Those are meant to be blockbuster films. Like, their audience, they're trying to grab as many fish as possible, right? Dune, like, so Marvel or Disney shows up with a fishing net. Like, Dune, Warner Brothers showed up with a fishing rod. Like, they had a specific piece of bait on there. They threw it out there. And, like, that was it. That's the thing, is, like, Dune...
Yeah. Like
is
Dune,
Pathfinder...
Dune is Warner Brothers' Iron Man. In the sense that, like, Dune Part 2 will be the next... Like, it's the start of its own full-on franchise.
I'm trying to go off of your analogy before, because... The Dune is it's just different. It's like, it's different. It's comparable to other movies like Green Knight, right? Like, if someone's an MCU fan, you could say, oh, go watch, I could tell them to go watch freaking a DC film. I could tell them to go watch Superman, Man of Steel, go watch Batman v Superman. I could tell them to go watch a Jackie Chan film. I could tell them to go watch a Kung Fu movie. I could tell them to go watch Die Hard, right? But, like, if someone's a huge fan of Green Knight, like, I can't really tell them to go watch MCU films, because those are just different films. Like, I could probably recommend Blade Runner 2049. I could probably recommend Squid Games. I could probably recommend, but I can't really recommend. I would recommend Game of Thrones, but I don't really recommend Game of Thrones up until season 7, because then season 7 and 8 it turns into the MCU. But we're not going to get into that.
Like, that's one of the things that I love about, like, talking about things that I like with people.
Yeah.
Like, another coworker at Half Price, who you don't know because she came along in the last couple months, she fucking loves shitty horror movies.
Oh, that's great.
Loves shitty horror movies. And I'm like, oh my god, kindred spirit, this is amazing. But I told her about Malignant. And I was like... and I tried to be like really vague, where I was like, oh my god, like you got to watch it because like he starts doing one thing and you're like, oh okay, I kind of think I know what this is, but then he does another thing and you're like, oh my god, and she was like, oh okay, I got you. And then she came back after she watched it and she was like, yeah, it was all right. Like she was on Malignant the way that I am on Dune, which I was kind of taken aback by. I was like, bro, this is like the shit that we talk about. And she was like, well, no, like, I mean, and what she ultimately described was what Malignant is, which is it is not actually a B movie.
Right.
It is James Wan riding on the coattails of Aquaman with fucking $40 million being like, I'm going to make a B movie, but I'm also going to make you think that I'm making one of my movies, and then we're going to slowly transit. Because, like, you look at Malignant, and, like, and I think we talked about this on that episode, which is, like, the thing that makes really shitty B movies charming is that they don't have any money and they don't have any time. That
right.
They don't know what they're doing. They're pulling whatever resources they have. That's what makes a movie like The Room the greatest terrible movie ever made, is because the guy literally didn't know what he was doing. So when you intentionally try to duplicate that, it's not exactly like, I get it. You like that shit, but you didn't make it because you had a shit ton of money.
Exactly. You know,
and
I think like we kind of discussed that in our podcast. So that's interesting. Yeah, no, but I totally see where you're coming from with that. I love that she kind of had that reaction, no offense. because
I was like, fuck you, but also you're right.
She's like, it's not actually a bad film. And you're like, did we watch the same film?
Yeah.
Again, which is kind of what me and you said too. We're like, this isn't a bad film. Like, it's purposely doing this. How can you be mad at the film for doing what it wants to do?
Well, yeah, it's like you know, like you're familiar with Sharknado, right?
Yes.
Like, so there are a lot of there are a shit ton of YouTube channels that cover bad movies.
Yes.
They won't do Sharknado because Sharknado is supposed to be bad. And what makes an enjoyable bad movie, and this sounds shitty, but this is the truth of it, what makes an enjoyable bad movie is when the person that made it thinks they made fucking Citizen Kane, and it actually turned out to be really bad.
Yeah.
That's what makes a successful B movie, is when the person making it is like, okay, like, I'm the grit. It's like Broxer. Okay, dude, like, we're gonna totally come together and make The Godfather. And it's like, dude, you made Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. And he's like, I know, that's The Godfather, right? And you're like, no, dude, you just made a movie about your friends going to get fast food. And he's like, you know what? That is my epic. That is my Odyssey. And you're like, okay, you know what? I see you, Broxer, and I like your style. Keep making your movies, my man.
I love the cut on your jib.
I feel like we got completely derailed from Dune.
Hey man, it wouldn't be a roundtable podcast if we didn't take it somewhere else.
It really would not. I'm gonna drop the character. I swear to God.
Really, the biggest thing that we talked about was characters. I think me and you are going to agree on everything else. I think the score was magnificent. I think the actors did a phenomenal job. I think that the cinematography was great. The what's
the production design?
Like
all
Cosmonaut
the sets, all the costumes.
Yes. That it was just. It's Cosmonaut said this. And I'm gonna take what he said. Like, nothing is extravagant except for the costumes. The costumes are way, like, they're crazy. They're fun to look at. But like the architecture and the ships and even the world.
Dude, I really like the Dragonfly ships.
Same.
I do want to throw that out there. That is something that, like, when I saw that, I was like, I dig this. Keep it going.
The Dragonfly ships were amazing. I love that. But there's nothing that really, like it's all thematic, or it's all themed, and it works. It works so good, and you feel like you're in another world. You feel like it's a world distant from yours, but at the same time, you could like somehow sneak in there and fit in, maybe. Yeah. My last little thing that I want to say about the characters, rounded off while I'm beating a dead horse, because I rambled on about that for a little bit, was that they all, it's like they're all very militaristic. It's like they grew up this way, and it's just normal for them to live like this, and that's it. That's my last little tidbit on that. Other than that, like not the cinematography, but the choreography was really good. No shaky camera. I could see everything that was going on in the fight scenes.
Let me ask you about that.
Okay.
So, because you just mentioned like no shaky cam and everything. So,
I guess. Okay, keep going. I'm gonna let you finish.
I felt like all of the like ships flying around and shooting lasers and fireballs and stuff exploding and chasing in vehicles, that was great to me.
Yeah. I
felt like all of the hand-to-hand combat was slightly underwhelming, in the sense that it just, again, like, just for my money, it felt very, we are actors, we are stunt people, we rehearsed this kind of, like, whenever people were doing hand-to-hand combat, it just felt very choreographed, like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, like people doing choreography, like a dance, as opposed to like, oh my god, like these people are really like I never felt anything visceral out of the fights. Like I didn't feel any like dirtiness to the fight. It just seemed very, which again is like, okay, cool, it's very balletic, it's very kind of theatrical in that way. It looks good, but I never, like, even when Momoa was doing his fucking death fight, which is a tangent, like mark this on your thing that I want to talk about later on, but even when he's doing his whole like death fight in the hallway, I was like, this just feels like people going through choreography, and I don't feel any real danger from anything happening right now. But that's just me.
So I'm okay. I'm no expert when it comes to, I don't want to consider myself an expert yet when it comes to choreography. I think that here, I'm gonna try to cut to a scene in the trailer where they're like fighting for like 2 seconds. I could literally pull it up on HBO and then play the fight scene. So okay, I think I'm gonna say something, and I could be 100% wrong, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. I think like the fighting in the movie works for me, mainly because it fits the tone of the film. That's my biggest thing, is like the fighting has to fit as well as the tone. It's also,
that's true.
It's also more, I don't want to say realistic fighting, but it's more, I'm gonna use the word realistic. I'm gonna use the word realistic and grounded, and I'm gonna like, the reason I say this is because in a fight, what you do in a fight is, and like I want to refer back to Akira Kurosawa films, is in a fight you test your opponent. You go in, you see what they're doing, and there's this kind of like atmosphere. There's this heavy weight to it, and then you go in and you do a little bit, you back off. Do a little bit, you back off. And that's if the fight is lasting this long. Even go back to, I can't remember the movie. It's a movie with, who played as Qui-Gon Jinn?
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, and it's like there's like fencing and things like that are going on, and
Rob Roy.
Rob Roy. So like that scene.
That's what it is.
Thank you.
Keep going.
You're so good at this. I'm so glad I have you as a co-host.
This is why we are. I was gonna say one and the same, but that's it. We are symbiotic.
We are symbiotic.
This is why we are symbiotic. This is the song we sing.
So like the fighting in those films, and Akira Kurosawa can seem choreographed, but there's a little more weight to like what they're doing, and when they're fighting, you can see okay, he's including his training, and I think like the addition to the shields, like makes things a little more interesting because they're hitting each other, but they have to like when they hit them, they'll bounce off the shield, but they have to like hit and then slow down their movement to get past the shield. Which is what I'm assuming because he says at one point the slow blade gets through the shield. Touches the skin,
right?
And for me, I enjoyed
the hose again.
I enjoyed the fighting a lot, and like my favorite scene was when Duncan is escaping. So the guy who's being played by Jason Momoa, he's escaping, and he's going up to one of the Firefly ships, and he takes out like 2 or 3 guys. And then the other guys are like, holy crap, he just took on 3 guys by himself. No fucking way am I dealing with that.
But
like,
what does he say to the guys right before he gets in the ship?
I don't know.
No, but that's another little gripe that I have is that the sound mix of dialogue in this movie fucking blows. Because like he says something, he basically is like, what? I just fucking I just took out these 2 bitches? Come at me, motherfucker! Yeah. He doesn't say that, and like I wish I understood what he said, but I didn't. And I was just he said something cool, and it's Jason Momoa, so yay, I'm excited.
I heard something. I was like, he said he pounds it. I literally don't remember. I feel like I heard it, but I just don't remember. I for some reason like, in my head,
come at me, you fools.
Yeah, he said something like respect. Like that's what I heard. And then he's just like raving his swords at them, and then they let him get. That to me it expresses the entire film. Like the choreographing combat in this film is they see and notice talent in a fight and how a fight works. The only time the fighting doesn't work for me is whenever Jessica or the mom like does a flip and like gets away from the main sand dude in the fight. Like when they're caught up and they're all surrounded and they're gonna kill him right then and there. That's the only time. But even then, that I feel like that scene you can get away with that scene because it's so small and so short. Yeah, like that's, I think the fight is more grounded and it's more I can see where it comes off as choreographed, but they're testing each other. They're testing each other going, and then at the very end when they don't have shields and he's going off of his vision, they're doing it again where you go in and it's like, okay, there's a certain way you fight with a knife, and they're showing us like, oh, because even Duncan was like, these are some of the hardest guys I've ever fought before in my life. And so we've only ever seen Paul kind of lose in everything that he's done up until he has to survive, because he failed at using the voice. He failed at fighting. He failed.
Right. He didn't get the right pitch.
Right. And he failed at, there's one other thing he failed at. He failed at being able to save his friend from his vision, because he even says like, if I was there I could have saved you. And then by the end of the film he succeeds at everything. He succeeds at the voice, he succeeds at fighting, and he succeeds at changing the course of his vision.
But I don't understand that, because I guess inherently, and maybe this will change if I watch it a second time, I didn't understand the purpose of Paul's visions, because essentially every time we see him have a vision, it's wrong. Like, he sees Zendaya's character killing him.
Yeah.
And she has like the bloody blade and the bloody hand and everything. And then and he even says to Momoa, he's like, I saw you die, and I felt like if I was there, it would have been different, you know. And then I saw you among the shit. What are the people called? The not
The
the
Harkonnens or
Featherin?
something like that.
No, the Harkonnens are the bad guys. But who are the people with the blue eyes? Or like the
Oh,
Featherin, the
the
Faerun,
Freeman, the Fremen.
the Fremen. He says, I saw you, like I saw you among the Fremen. And Duncan is like, oh, so I meet them, whatever. And yet he is there when Duncan dies, but he is just not in the same room. So I guess like that was the difference. Like if Duncan hadn't locked the door, he would have been able to save him. But then even when he and his mom, after they after the sandworm pops up and like goes away or whatever, and they're walking through the mountain or whatever, like you see Jason Momoa. And Jason Momoa is there. You see him wearing the like face mask of the suit, and you see his eyes. Like it's Jason Momoa. I know those fucking eyes, my man.
Yeah.
But he's not there. And
think
that was just something that I was like, oh shit, like Duncan is there. Like it's just like in his vision. But then no, it was just Paul going, I remember being in this moment, and then I remember long ago when I had this and I was like, oh fuck you, filmmaking technique. Like stop, don't show me something unless it's actually happening.
So
like I just found myself and then even real quick, before you get into your thing, real quick. He even before he's about to have the fight with the dude who challenges him to a duel, there's this vision where like that dude, the black guy, is like he is there with him in the cavern, and he's talking about, he's the guy who talks about the flow. Like, and you see all the close-ups of like the sand vibrating and everything, and he talks about the flow. You have to go with it. It rises, it falls, whatever. And I was like, oh shit, like this dude, and I'm checking the timestamp, you know, and I'm like, okay, we're getting kind of close to the end. I was like, okay, this dude is going to be really important in the sequel if we ever get it. Like he's going to be kind of Paul. He's going to like train Paul. He's going to be Paul is Luke Skywalker, and this guy is going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then 5 minutes later, no, Paul fucking stabs this guy, and he's fucking dead, and he's wrapped up in a fucking body wrap. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to? What am I supposed to take from these visions? Are they supposed to inform the story? Am I supposed to, is that the point that I see them and I think one thing, but then something opposite happens? Is that the point? I just couldn't wrap my head around that.
Well, okay. I'm going to go off of, I'm going to make 2 points here. And I don't know how, like, I don't know how right I am, because now I need to go rewatch the movie to see these things. Because I initially thought the same thing. Like, I thought that guy that he kills at the end of the film, I thought he was the guy that was, like, his mentor. But
yeah,
that was my initial thought. And then when he dies, I was like, okay, that maybe maybe they just look similar, because then I think the guy,
he's not Obi-Wan, like maybe he's Han, like maybe he's like his sidekick or something.
I think that guy is just like literally just some random dude. I think we both just assumed it was the dude, because I think the guy that he had shows up later. I don't think we've even met that character yet. That's my assumption. That's my first assumption. The second one is,
Mario, does that mean that I'm just racist and I saw a black guy in a vision and then I saw a black guy get killed and I thought it was the same guy? No, I'm serious.
Like, well, I thought the same thing too. I literally thought the same thing. And then because my interpretation of the visions is a little different than yours, because when he talks about the vision of Duncan, they specifically show us the wide shot of Duncan, but they show us a lot of close-ups of the girl, Zendaya. And I think it's real important for that, because I think when they never really show us the vision of Duncan being killed. So like, I think it's safe to assume that Paul had visions of, like, close-up visions of Duncan being killed. and understood that Duncan was going to die, and he understood it's going to happen in the future, and assumes it's going to, it's also in an unknown location that he doesn't know where it is in Atreus. So he assumes it's going to be in Dune. And then we see the vision of him with the wide shot that he found the Furman. And so like he puts two and two together. He's like, you're going to die by the Furman. Maybe I could be there. And he doesn't, and he fails at being able to save his friend. Even though he knew his friend was going to die. And I think that's where he then learns, like, by the end of the film, okay, like, these visions, they happen, but I have to understand, like, what I'm seeing. I have to do better. And so he sits there and he's just concentrating, and he's just really depicting this vision of him dying to this guy. And this was him, like, starting to, like, as Orpheus would say, he's beginning to believe. And he becomes Neo, and he starts to, like, understand his visions, and he starts to take control of his own destiny. This is him grabbing the wheel. So I think,
which makes sense because he is supposed to be the one,
right,
as they say. Which, again, I forgot to give you credit for this right as we enter the spoiler section.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing to consider going into watching this movie. Is it is so important to remember that this was one of the first.
Yes.
Like, Dune was one of the first things, and it has so influenced things like Star Wars and The Matrix, you know, and everything in between and everything after that, like, yeah, if you watch this and you're like, well, yeah, I already saw it in this, that, and it's like, well, okay, well, yeah, but this started all that shit. So give it some bonus points.
Right, which is why, like, I made that joke on Friday. It was like such a ripoff from Star Wars.
yeah, you even said, like, this guy's a Jedi, and as I was watching it, I was like, yeah, he's kind of a fucking Jedi.
He's a Jedi. Like, he's a Jedi without a sword. Oh, wait, now he has a sword. He's a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
The combat worked for me. I don't know. Like, I can't really. Every one of your points is super valid. Like you saw the movie in a different way, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna rewatch this film and think about everything Jeff said, and the film's gonna be like worse for me. Like, I don't like when you say something, I'm like, huh, wow, yeah, he's right, but no. Like, yeah, it's Black Widow 2.0. I love when we have Black Widow moments now.
Well, just in the sense of, like, we both, like, you love a thing, I don't like it as much, but we don't disagree on any point that the other person makes.
Yeah. Well, it's because you are. Here's the thing. Like, I speak to a lot of people.
It's just a testament to what taste is. Like,
yeah.
You have a different frame of reference than I do. And we have similar tastes, but we have different tastes. And, like, that's the point, is like, yes, different people can watch the same thing and have different opinions about it and not hate each other. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, I think we send out a good message to the world.
That's
our mission statement of this podcast. Well, here's another thing. Not to offend you, which I don't think I could at this point.
No.
I could go the rest of my life and never rewatch Malignant and be happy.
And that's totally fine.
Like,
because that movie, that's another point of that movie, is that, like, it doesn't work on rewatch.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be 20 minutes shorter.
But
then you can rewatch it again.
But I'm so happy that, like, you asked me to watch it, and I'm so happy we got to talk about it. But just like Dune for you, like, I'm pretty sure you could go the rest of your life not rewatch Dune and just could die happy.
I will think about rewatching it for a while, and I will probably end up rewatching it at some point. But yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a testament to us, honestly. It's a testament to us, and I think, like, for sure, anyone who watches this podcast or rewatches these videos, yeah, you, like if someone has a different opinion than you,
that's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Who
You
cares?
should. I want to say what Jeff said in a previous podcast. That's kind of unrelated, but I think fits for this thing. If you see something differently, educate me. And I think like what you said before, Jeff, was like if I am ignorant or like about a certain culture or race, I want to be educated in the subject. That's kind of how I feel if someone has a different opinion than me. Is educate me in your way of thinking, like in what you saw, and that's what we do. And I think like if I talk to other people, they're too busy trying to get their point across, trying to force their will onto me, that it's like, well, this is no longer a friendly conversation. This is just like a debate or an argument, and I wasn't trying to have one of those with you.
Well, no. That's always been my thing. Is like I too often have run into people.
Did we literally lose him? Am I the one that lagged out? I think we lost Jeff.
Point
Jeff,
in trying to make.
Jeff, you cut out. You cut out.
Okay.
Just start from the beginning, because you literally cut out right when you started talking.
I felt like I did because I paused. I paused for a reaction and nothing happened. No, but I feel like too often I have heard people talk about how they have conversations with people, and my thing has always been like, I don't want to debate anybody. Like I'm not ever trying to prove that I am right and you are wrong. Like, because when you and I talk, I don't feel like it's ever a debate.
Yeah, same.
Like the point of this conversation is not, okay, at the end of this podcast, Jeff is right and Mario is wrong, or Mario is right and no, it's like we both like have an opinion, motherfucker, and just move on. Like, who gives a shit? And that's kind of the thing is, yeah, I liked it or I didn't like it. Next week, like, because again, and here's the main reason why I feel like this is so important to like this again. This is just you and me talking on your channel. I don't know who's listening. I don't know how many people are listening, etc., etc., etc. Stop trying to prove each other wrong. Stop trying to call it. That is a big thing that has come up with me recently, is people watching movies or watching TV shows and being like, oh, called it. It's like, who are you helping?
Yeah, seriously.
You called it. You had an opinion about a thing. That's great. Right now, we're talking about Dune. In 2 weeks, we're talking about Eternals. Like, oh, fuck Warner Brothers. Who gives a shit about Warner Brothers? We're all about Marvel again. The MCU is back. Like, that's how the world works. You just move on to the next thing. So stop worrying about allegiances. Like, oh, DC versus Marvel.
Yeah, I hate that.
It doesn't matter. Because what matters is what's out that weekend. And again, if Dune is your favorite movie of all time, that's really fucking cool. Like, good on you, dude. Like, I don't blame you for thinking Dune is the greatest thing that you've ever seen. At one point, I thought Sucker Punch was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I still love that movie, but I acknowledge how fucking stupid it is. You know? So,
for sure.
Now we're on a whole different thing.
No, but I think it's
but yeah, it is.
It's a good message. It's a good message that you bring up, because like we are gonna. And when you talked about that podcast of those guys and like they have different opinions, and it just makes me happy to know that probably someone's gonna listen to us and have like the same thing that you have with those guys. Like, oh, if Mario hates this, I probably love it. If right? Like someone. And I'm glad that we have such, like, opposite taste, you know? We meet in the middle with action blockbusters, but we then go our separate ways in our own niches, and I'm so happy that we do, right? Like you'll go watch Halloween, and I won't watch it unless you ask me to. And I'll go watch freaking like The Last Duel and just and that kind of, you know what I mean? Like that's what came out this month, and we're gonna go watch those different things, and we'll have an episode. I wouldn't even be bothered if I had an episode where you watched a movie and you were super psyched about it, and you were just like, look, Mari, I know you didn't want to watch this movie, but let me tell you about it. And then like I just love talking to someone. I like talking to someone. I love talking to my friend about our hobbies. So
stop making me cry, dude.
Yeah, no. Well, this is. I hope to have more moments where we disagree because we handle it. We're both adults about it, and we handle it very professionally, whether we're supposed to or not.
It's not even a disagreement. It is, I have an opinion.
Yeah,
I have an opinion.
I have an opinion. That's all.
Moving on.
For
like, it's not even about like, oh well, I heard your opinion, so I'm going to counter that. Like, no, I'm not gonna like if like you have said some stuff that I'm like, all right, cool. Mario said some stuff. I don't have to counter that. I don't have to be like, well, Mario, I see your 20 this, and I will raise you 10 that.
Oh, you Bond villain, you. Unless there's any other points you want to bring up.
The one point that I did want to bring up, and
you wanted to talk about Duncan or something like that.
I did. So I brought up Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
And again, this is this is kind of slightly counterintuitive to what we're just talking about, because this is me shitting on Dune for things. But again, this is just me talking. So one of the things that I like to do, and maybe you can relate to this, but when I watch movies, one of the things that I like to do is just go, okay, a friend told me to go see this movie, or I went to go see this movie with my family because everybody's going, or like, okay, I don't actually want to watch this movie for whatever reason, but because I have a background in theater acting, acting is a thing that I really find myself getting in touch with, so I always identify with actors.
Okay.
And even if I'm watching a movie that I don't really have that much vested interest in, if there are actors in the movie that I like, it kind of boosts my morale a little bit. Where I'm like, okay, I might not necessarily be into this, but you know, it's got these in it, so you know, I'm interested. Again, just talking for myself, and this is really just a bit. I don't care. This is just a bit. The thing that pissed me off about this movie is that every actor that I was attached to is fucking dead by the end of this movie. And I mean this is, and I swear, I mean this is a bit, but think about it. So let's start at the bottom and then work our way up. So David Dastmalchian is in this movie. He's the guy who you would recognize as Polka Dot Man from the Suicide Squad. He was like the right-hand guy to the villain in Dune.
Oh, yeah. No eyebrows, yeah.
Yeah, he dies from the poison.
That's right.
So I was like, all right, rock on. David Dastmalchian is fucking dead. That's cool. That's cool.
I see where you're going with this.
Oscar Isaac is in this movie. He's gone too, because he set off the poison that killed David Dastmalchian. so never mind. Because again, like, going back to Sucker Punch, I have loved Oscar Isaac since fucking Sucker Punch.
I love
Oscar
Isaac.
I was talking, I remember having conversations with film industry people, friends of mine from back in the day when Sucker Punch initially came out, and I was like, this guy is fucking great. You don't understand. He's like a really good actor because he was the bad guy in this movie. He's really good. And people were like, that guy, dude, Jeff, I don't know what you're smoking. That guy is never going to amount to anything.
Wow, really?
He's in this shitty movie. And I was like, He's playing Apocalypse in X-Men, and he's in Force Awakens. I'm pretty sure his career will be fine. And now he's like the most sought-after guy in fucking Hollywood.
Good stuff.
I literally had that conversation with an ex-coworker, and I'll say ex in like a bad sense, just in the sense that I'm not in the film industry anymore.
You guys used to work together, and then you decided to break it off.
I saw Sucker Punch. I didn't really think anything of it, and I was like, he's literally in X-Men and Star Wars. Like, I mean, even if that was it, if he was in one X-Men movie and one Star Wars movie, you're pretty good.
You're pretty good. Like, I mean, we could probably debate X-Men, but
to keep going, and we'll just I'll just throw this off to the side. This is the actor I was talking about beforehand, but Josh Brolin just kind of disappears.
Yes, that was the one I was talking about as well. I was like,
apparently he.
Oh, spoilers! I assumed.
Spoilers. But apparently he shows. But I was like, okay, and again, here's my problem with that. This is one kind of actual criticism that I will give the movie, which is Josh Brolin. You cast him in a role that he kind of just sort of goes away halfway through the movie. So either he died and you just deleted that scene for some reason, like they did back in the day with Lord of the Rings, or he's gonna come back in some sort of epic Deus Ex Machina way in part 2, in which case you played yourself. Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like it's just very telegraphed. Or B, the sequel doesn't end up happening anyway, and then it's like, oh, well, hey, Josh Brolin, we signed you up for something that didn't actually end up happening. Sorry, bro. So that was another thing. The one that really got me was when fucking Jason Momoa died. I was legitimately disappointed. But again, I was disappointed, not because I gave a shit about the character. Again, I'm not taking a dig at the movie. It's just me. But I was like, fuck, really? Like, I was kind of sort of along for the ride.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't super excited about the movie, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch the movie, whatever. And then it took a while, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm into the movie, let's go. And then, really? Like Jason, I don't give a, like, that's the thing. And this is where it's unfair for me to say this to people who like this movie. I get it. I don't give a fuck about Duncan, Idaho. Jason Momoa died. Fuck Duncan. I'm talking about Jason Momoa is not in this movie franchise anymore. He didn't say that when he was on Stephen Colbert. He should have prepared me for that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here's the thing. Doing this podcast, I don't know. Maybe you've rubbed off on me, or maybe I've just like grown into movies more. But same, dude. 100% same sentiment. I was watching the movie, but I was also, like, in my little heart that's right here, was cheering on these actors. And just... Yeah. I was more upset that I wouldn't get to see more of Oscar Isaac and Jason Momoa and these other guys than I was that their actual characters died. Not gonna lie. And I've still like, as we were talking and like we would get distracted and then I wouldn't get to bring it up before even this podcast, like even when I was rewatching the movie the second time, I was like, I hate that he dies because I want him to be in this movie.
Well, and also because like Paul talks about it like in his visions, and I was like, well, wait, no, that's what we're setting up here, right? Like there he's here. He said earlier you died, but I felt like if I was there, I could have changed things. Like he's here. Yeah. Like he's changing the future, right? That's what we're setting up. No, okay, he's just dead.
He's dead.
But then he comes back. But he died anyway.
I'm so glad
that was the other thing. He was like, I was dead. He came back and then he died.
He's toying with your heart.
Fuck you, Khal Drogo. Suck a dick.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I need to bring up my complaint, which I don't even know if it's a complaint for me. I'm gonna bring up someone else's complaint. I'm gonna bring up Cosmonaut Marcus' complaint. You saw the video, right? He complains about the doctor and how the doctor is such a crucial point in the film. I didn't even realize that until he said something. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and apparently there was like a deleted scene.
Oh, was there?
He talks about where the doctor talks about his wife.
Oh.
And I was like, that would have been pretty fucking important to include in the movie. Thank you.
Yep.
Instead of just being like, hello, I have double-crossed you because of my wife. This is completely random and new information to the audience. Like, at the very least, have him be like, hey, by the way, I have a wife. She is missing. I miss her.
Yeah, at that...
Like, give me something, dude.
At that point in the movie, like, when someone is turning off the shields and killing the guards, and I was like, okay, someone's doing something. I was like, they're not showing us who, so someone's probably a traitor of some sorts. But I was also still thinking maybe they're being infiltrated by the Harkonnen. And like, I completely forgot that they had shields. I didn't even realize that was a shield generator that was being turned down. I thought he turned off the freaking the factory to make the spice. I thought they turned off the spice factory because earlier in the movie he says our two most vulnerable points are the refinery and the spaceport, and I'm like, so when he goes in there and I was like, oh, he stopped making spice, and then freaking Oscar Isaac wakes up and he's gonna see that the spice factory's down, and then like that's not happening, and I go, okay, what did he turn off? And it wasn't till like I was done watching the film and I was driving home. I was like, oh, the shields. So, yeah, that's a bit off topic. Anyways, yeah, so like whenever the doctor, it reveals that it was the doctor. When I was watching the film, I was kind of just like, okay. Like, I was like, oh. Because, again, as I'm watching these characters, the doctor is another character we see, and I go, oh wow, the wife trusts this doctor more than she trusts like anyone else. Like, she's hiding this from her husband, who I thought they were married, and then turns out they weren't. But she's hiding this from her partner. She's hiding this from everyone, and then the doctor speaks a different language to.
Yeah, wait, no. Real quick, because you bring him a thing that I thought that I heard, but I didn't think anything of it. So wait, Oscar Isaac and Rebecca Ferguson are not man and wife?
No, they're not married.
Because as he was going to sleep, I could have sworn that he said, "I wish you were my wife," or "I wish I made you my wife," or something like that.
Yeah, he said, "I should have made you my wife." Or he said, I should have married you, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that, and I was like, wait, what? No, okay, I probably just misheard, whatever.
I didn't...
That's important, but also, who gives a fuck? But also, why would you put that in the movie if it didn't matter?
Yeah.
Like, that's again where I'm split on this movie of, like, does that mean anything? I don't know.
Well, and then, like...
Again, it's half a movie, so
here's the thing.
Am I supposed to read into that because it's going to play into the next movie that may or may not happen? I don't know.
Okay. Well, okay. Here's how I look at it. So this is why this was news to me about the doctor, and I think this is why it got cut. And like, I'm gonna have to agree on the fact that it got cut. And I'm gonna defend the film this way. I do understand the blight, but whoa, shish kebab! I'm about to get freaking.
Wait, what just happened?
The music switched to music that is copyright, and I'm. I caught it. I caught it after some time, but luckily we were talking over it, and I keep the music really quiet. So
Blah 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 blah.
thanks Spotify for freaking. I don't know why it does. It automatically like jumps to another track. I guess not even related. Just like I'm on a playlist, and I want it to stay on this playlist. Maybe I should hit that loop-de-loop thing to stay on the playlist. I'll know that for the future. Anyway, sorry. Wow, that's all. Sorry, podcast listeners. Let me. Okay, we're gonna pretend like that never happened. So here's why I'm gonna say like the scene with the doctor getting deleted, because throughout the film there's this tone of everyone, you get snippets of personality, like I explained before plenty of times, and as you're getting snippets of these personalities, they're doing exposition to lore. So with the doctor, the first time we really see him is whenever the wife, or as the main villain says it, the concubine, because that's what verified for me that they weren't married, was whenever the guy was like, "We killed your concubine and your son," and I was like, okay, yeah, they're definitely not married now. And so like then, so whenever she's talking and she says, "I trust you, like you're not going to tell anyone," he's like that, and then he has a moment where he speaks to Paul in a different language. So it's like, okay, well, they have a relationship, so much so that he initiates the conversation in a different language, and Paul continues with it. So you can assume that the mom doesn't know the language, or you can just assume that he's just comfortable with speaking to Paul, which me being racist right now is probably his native language, and yada yada. So
it's okay for you to do it.
But so then there's that, and then the only other time we really see him is whenever Paul has, like, in a quotation marks around this, an allergic reaction to the spice, and so like he's the first person that these guys go to for their health. So he's well trusted within the family, and he has a standing relationship to them. That is technically all I need to know about that character, for there to be a twist, and then the twist is, oh, he's a person that has a life, I guess, outside of the Atreides family, and that's like, oh snap. Because if that deleted scene was still in the film, I feel like it wouldn't. I'm sure it would fit given the talents of Denis Villeneuve, but he would have been the only character that would have had another quotations around with this, another like hobby. He would have been the only character that would have had an extra moment in the film to explain what his life is outside of the Atreides family.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is the reason why they took it out. And it would have been important to know, oh, this guy, like, because it kind of does what Black Panther does, where Black Panther fails. Because, like, Black Panther tries to have 5 plot twists in one, when it should have just been, hey, the audience knows something that the main character doesn't, and then that's it.
Right.
So I think that could have worked better for the film, but I can see why they went the direction that they did. It kept the same tone, and then it shows that the villain uses people, because he uses the Bene Gesserit, or the witches, and then he uses the Atreides, and he uses this guy. So it shows that the villain, even though he has the forces to do things, he likes to play chess rather than brute force.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's how I saw it when I was watching the film.
I guess what I was looking for, and again, not to directly compare the Dune novel to the Lord of the Rings novel, because Frank Herbert, J.R.R. Tolkien, like separate camps, whatever.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think what my takeaway from the Dune movie is that I did not get from Denis Villeneuve what Peter Jackson gave us in Hobbiton. Where and again, this is just kind of echoing or adding emphasis to what I was saying, fucking 2 hours ago. But in The Lord of the Rings, you have that whole section that is just, here is who fucking hobbits are.
Yeah.
Here is everything that hobbits stand for. Here is all of what hobbits are. Therefore, it constantly lingers back to when you get to Return of the King, when fucking Sam and Frodo are at the precipice of Mount Doom. All hope is lost. They're fucking done. Like, Frodo's ready to give up, and Sam is like, remember so-and-so doing this in the fields. Remember so-and-so doing this in the bar. And he tells that whole tale leading up to, ultimately, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. And he fucking puts Frodo on his shoulder. Hobbiton. Like, that's what we're fighting for, man. That's what we're there for. And I just didn't quite get that from this movie.
Yeah. Can
I just don't quite. I still just don't. Like, I understand. Here are these people. Here's what they're doing. Here are those people. Here's what they're doing.
But what if that's their personality? What if that is their personality? Is like, it's just.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, I think that's what this is. Like, and that's totally fine.
Look at
it's just not quite.
Look at what Paul does for his free time. He literally, like, spends his free time reading textbooks and learning different languages.
Yeah?
Like, he doesn't play chess. He doesn't go play with other kids. He doesn't... Like, he is probably younger than us, I would assume. And his father...
Oh, yeah.
His father trusts him enough to join in on war councils, and no one blinks an eye at it. Like, there's no one that's like... He's too young. There's no one that's like, oh, he's too immature.
Cool, actually.
He's too arrogant. Like,
yeah.
Everyone's like, hey, you made it, boy. Hey, welcome, buddy. And like, that's another thing. Whenever the villain says the Emperor, who literally delegates worlds out to factions, he has the power to just say, hey, that's your planet now. Have fun. I also expect you to make me a lot of money from this planet. And if you don't, well, bad things are going to happen. All right. And so, like, the villain tells us that the Emperor is scared of these guys. And it's like, well, why is he scared of these guys? Well, their entire life is militaristic. They're like Spartans. Like, they don't know anything else but how to be a military, from what I'm being told. I literally don't know if they have any sports, or I know they used to what's it called? Fight bulls. Like his great grandfather.
Yeah, because he has that miniature that he keeps cutting back to.
Right. It's like
the matador and the bull.
Like, he used to fight bulls, but there's this whole thing where
did he? I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you the significance of that figurine.
So so whenever Paul is going over to his father and he says, hey, I want to be one of the ground forces that go there first. And he's like, no, you're not ready. I still need you to train. Like, I need you to learn. You still need to learn. And he's like, well, grandfather fought bulls. And I was like, that's such a weird comparison, dude.
What are you talking about?
But you think about it.
But then you go to another scene and you have the matador figurine there.
Right. But
that makes sense.
But the thing that's happening is that Paul's father's response to that was, and look where that got him. It's their culture has grown so far that, like, They've turned into Marios. They don't have fun anymore. Fun is not a thing. Like, his father sees him being like, he says, well, I wanted to be a pilot at one point, but, you know, and the whole thing turns into like responsibilities. Like, your grandfather was not upholding his responsibilities. But the fact that Paul compared bullfighting to going out with Duncan to scout out a planet, and those were the same things, and his father says, hey, look, you can't have fun. Like, the idea of fun is going out on a military scouting mission for these people. that I was like, okay, they're just Spartans. All they do is military. Like, that's all they know. That's why that first scene with his mom at the dinner table is, let's practice. Like, you're having breakfast right now. Looks like you have some free time. How about you put in some work, you lazy bitch? And he's like, oh, okay, fine, Mom. Well, sorry.
And same thing with his father, you know, during the rescue mission where, you know, they're like, sir, this is blah, 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 however much of spice. And he's like, fuck. And I mean, it's a PG-13 movie, so he doesn't say fuck. But he's like, fuck the spice, you know. And his thing is like, I don't give a shit about, like, all the resources. Like, get your men on board these ships before these fucking sandworms get here.
Yeah, he values...
Like, his thing is human life. It's not about, you know, the resource... Like, yeah, like, he didn't come here to cultivate resources. Like, yeah, that's part of it, but at the same time, like, he's not gonna, you know, sacrifice fucking life to it.
Right. And that's I don't know, like I guess like we definitely watched this film in different ways, but your take on it, everything you say, I can't help but agree with.
Yeah, it's again, like, it's a weird movie to talk about, and that's why, you know, when I went to work today, I was like, did you see Dune?
I think
you didn't see Dune? Okay, cool. And if they saw Dune, I was like, oh yeah. Like, it was weird. Like, when I found that people hadn't seen it, I was more excited because I was like, oh, okay, cool. No, I'm just not saying anything because I don't want to raise your expectations. I don't want to, you know, skew with your excitement level, you know, whatever. But then when people had seen it, I was like, oh yeah, you have to. Okay, cool. Oh, you like it? Yeah, cool. Oh shit, I got orders. I gotta go back to work. You know, because it's just a very down the middle movie for me, where I'm like, I don't hate it. I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm not trying to talk shit about it. I'm not trying to down it in any sort of way. It is an amazing cinematic achievement. It just, again, like, on that personal level, like,
I think
nobody is dealing with anything that I can relate to.
Yeah.
Everything is so otherworldly and so political and so outlandish that I'm like, does anybody deal with needing to take a smoke break?
Oh yeah.
Like, I can relate. Like, nobody needs it. You know, just little, like, does anybody want ice cream but they know that they're lactose intolerant? You know, there's like dumb shit like that. Like, nobody has like a little tiny thing. No care. Okay.
There's
cool. Like, this is amazing. It's just not for me.
Right. No, and like, I think there's also this thing about me, and I've said this in the past, where I look really deep into films. I probably look too deep into films when I watch them. That's what I feel like. And I think this film helps weird viewers like me look deep into something. All right, and again, this film's very niche. It's very niche, and I'm just happy to have someone to talk about it with. I'm gonna have one coworker that I can talk to with about it, and that's gonna be fun. But I'm happy. I'm happy I got to talk to you about it in length. Let's just say I'm glad you got to watch it, and I know it's fun seeing the different parts, and it, like, talking to you helps me learn about myself as a movie. Because really, when you're the only one watching movies, and there's no one really else that watches movies, and you don't really get to have like lengthy conversations with people about movies, you start to feel like everyone watches movies how you watch movies. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts to become so it's real refreshing. To learn
it
about
makes
myself.
it more interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like it's one thing to be like, I watched a thing and it was amazing, and then when everyone around you is like, it's amazing, and then you know it's another thing when people are like, oh, I thought it was amazing for something completely left of center, and you're like, wow, I thought something completely different, and you're like, oh shit, fuck it. I can't think of it. I can't think of anything right now, but I have had that, you know, once in a while,
right.
where like I come out of a movie where an actor has a look on their face, and I was like, that looked really redemptive and optimistic, and one of my friends was like, no, dude, like they're setting up a sequel that's never gonna happen where that dude's gonna fucking take over the world, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to have different opinions.
You started out in the non-spoiler one, so I'll go ahead and start this time around. After speaking to Jeff and going over the spoilers and things of that nature, my opinion definitely kind of has changed about the film. I look at it a different light. I think even though I went into this film very blind and knew nothing about the source material, I still kind of like had this, the film was still kind of catered to me, and I didn't realize it was going to be catered to me, and that made me have a biased opinion, and I felt like I knew I had a biased opinion. I will say this before the film is something that I would recommend to people, with a warning. Yeah, I would recommend it, and I will tell them it's for kind of what I've said all night. It's for a niche audience. It's a slow burn, and it's not really. It's not your typical lighthearted film. It's not a film. If you like lighthearted films, it's not one of those things. I shouldn't say lighthearted. It's not a. You get what I'm going at, but it's a very niche film. I do recommend it with a grain of salt. Just be prepared for what you're going to watch. However, I still recommend it if you are just a huge fan of like cinematography and cinema in general, because you'll just love almost everything in this film and what gets done. It's nearly a mastercraft at what films can be, and what, you know, how they can be. My rating for the film still stays the same. If anything, I'm gonna take away my 8.75 and my 8.5, and it's gonna be a solid 8 with a seal, big old stamp of approval. Go watch this film. I freaking love it and enjoyed it. But yeah, critically, I'd give it an 8. Mainly because me and Jeff talked about it a little bit with the characters. There really isn't any personality, and I didn't kind of realize that until Jeff pointed that out to me. So like the personality that hurts the film, and could maybe, I don't know, maybe it hurts the film, maybe it doesn't hurt the film. You could say these characters aren't supposed to have personality, and then my rebuttal would be, well, this film isn't supposed to have as much action as it did, so ha. And the other thing is, I guess that main plot point with the dude, like, it's a very pivotal point in the movie. Maybe give us some more motivation behind it. Give us some more character motivation. I mean, there's enough character motivation, but I don't know. It came off as a plot twist, even though I think it didn't hit as strong as the audience might think it is. Still, 8 out of 10. Fantastic film. Go recommend it. And I pass it over to Jeff.
I will say, if you are a hardcore cinephile, hardcore sci-fi person, hardcore recommend, obviously, because that checks all those boxes. If you're just kind of a casual, I like to go watch movies to be entertained, it just comes down to a pragmatic standpoint of if you're willing to throw down some shekels to go see this in a theater, absolutely go see it in a theater. if you're a little on the fence of like, no, I'm a hardcore cinephile, but I don't know, then, maybe, I don't know. This movie is so polarizing. Mario, this is such a difficult one. I want to recommend it to the people who feel like they want to see it. But if I guess that's ultimately where I'm at.
That's where you're at, yeah.
If you were gung-ho, oh my god, I saw the trailers, I love Jason Momoa, I love Zendaya, I love people who are in this movie, blah, blah, blah. By all means, go see it. You'll probably get whatever you want out of it. If you're a little on the fence, then you probably will like it more than you thought, or you might not like it. And if you're just like, Dune, what's that? Then don't bother.
Love it. Love it. Are you still abstaining from scoring it? I guess you did score it before, but are you still?
I mean, I'm just 5 out of 10, just because it's just very down the middle. There's nothing. I will again say there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't hit me in any sort of meaningful way. So 5 out of 10.
Do you think it deserves its like the box office that it's getting, like the 40 million and the 220? Do you think it's well deserved or it's misplaced?
I do, just from the spectacle standpoint of it. It is amazingly realized in terms of cinematography and production design and costume design. Yeah, I hope it gets a part 2, but if it doesn't, then I don't care. I like, again, it's that thing where like I look at it and I'm like, yes, this is an amazing achievement of cinematicness. That it's great that this movie exists. If it didn't exist, I would also continue living my life.
Well,
that sounds so fucked up.
No, it's fine. It's fine. That's your opinion, dude. And like, that's fine. I want this to get a part 2. I can't, like, I'm gonna be thinking about part 2. I'm gonna go read the book. I'm on the Dune train right now, and so I'm riding the worm. I'm riding the worm with everyone else. So that's fine. Like, don't feel bad about your opinion, dude. Like, you don't have to like what's trending. I know I definitely don't at a lot of times.
Yeah.
But thank you for you guys listening. If you're catching us, you can always catch us on any podcast like Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. Watch this on YouTube. Leave us a comment below, or if you watch this on the comment, find us at YouTube at Digital Hero 101, and you can leave us a comment, your thoughts, whether you liked it. Was it polarizing? What did you like about it? What did you not like about the film? As well as, if you do want to find one of our podcasts, go to Digital RoundTable is where you'll find us. Thank you. Until next time, play nice.